two major groups that make up a huge chunk, the bulk of Kenya's population, the middle class and low-income earners. And we're looking at their involvement, their engagement in political processes in the country, or lack of it. And tonight I'm joined here on location. My immediate left is Mark Kaigwa, who's a social media consultant, and next to him is Ken Ouko, sociologist, University of Nairobi. Thank you both for being with us. I start with you, Ken. Describe to us, who are these people we're calling the middle class? Who's the particular person you'll find in that group, and also in the low-income earners category?
Sophia, the middle class are those guys who, like the name suggests, who are caught in the middle. They are the restless population, in between the four classes of society. You have the very wealthy, who are the bourgeoisie. They feel nothing, they do nothing. Then you have the elite, who make the affairs of the country run, the politicians and the social trenders. But then you have the middle class guys who are trying to avoid going back downward where they came from, and trying very hard to get upwards towards the elite. And these are guys who are able to afford most of the stuff they are looking out for. Yes. And what they need now is a voice to make themselves felt in society, show where they're going, and try to get direction.
Okay. Low-income earners?
These are the fellows who are struggling. We call them the survivors, hand to mouth, day to day. And to them, life has a future tomorrow. Yeah, and they're always looking for a way out of where they are. But most of the times they're stuck in that level. Okay. And it's very rare that they move upwards. So most of the times they have to make do with what they have. And that's why they get very violent, very vocal most of the times about their issues.
All right, Kaigwa, let's come to you. Social media. Who's the kind of a person you'll find on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media interaction? What kind of a person? What are their priorities? What do they like? What do they not like?
Right, well, we know there's over 15 million people with access to the internet now, who you could call, really that's a cross-section of our population.
Right.
But as you drill that down and you look at some of these social networks, like you mentioned, you look at a social network like Facebook, of which the about 72% of that population is between 18 and 34, evenly split between 18 and 24 years, and 25 to 32. Now, typically, this is somebody with a means of disposable income, to afford airtime, and for data, for example. And this crowd, this online middle class, if you like, so taken from that, those with access to the internet and those who particularly share quite a bit, as we saw yesterday. Kenyans might not know, but we made history, if you like, by having a very high amount of trending topics, if you like, on a social network like, for example, Twitter, with 200 million people. And here you had a small audience, a very vocal audience of about 14,000 people, according to a report that's set to come out this week from a company called Brandzai, that shared and really vocalized, and for the first time really acted on a lot of the criticism they've been getting of late.
All right. Ken, how would you gauge the involvement of the middle class and the low-income earners in terms of the political processes in the country?
The lower class, the lower income earners are usually very participatory. They're guys who think that a politician, a leader, an electoral process is probably their way out of trouble. And they always look at it as a beacon of hope. And that's why they're so vocal when it comes to supporting someone. They're looking at that someone as the messiah out of the trouble where they find themselves. The middle class, on the other hand, are, armchair spectators. Most of the times they have a lot of knowledge, access to information, and they're looking for a way of expressing themselves and just to assert their authority. Being a very restless class of people, one of the things they want to do is show their participation and involvement, but not by participating directly in the electoral process.
Exactly, and I want to bring in Mark on that, because you've said they'll talk about it, and we see that a lot on Twitter. They vent, they will complain, they will say this is not right, it shouldn't happen. Why are we not seeing actionables from the middle class?
Well, I think it's also what we take as a precedent for action, right? If we take the party primaries which just passed,
yes,
I think there's a number of factors beyond just this middle class and the perceived complacency of them, and inability, as it's spoken of, to act in that process. I think the election will be a much stronger indicator. And I think we don't have a precedent really for where we are now with the penetration of technology, with how pervasive mobile phones are, and really the connectiveness of this generation right now. So I think that even though they are getting quite a bit of criticism, yesterday in particular stands out to me because I think a very small audience, like I said, about 14,000 authors distinctively, 78% of whom were Kenyan, took this country, that particular debate, and the topics, funny, serious, and everything in between, global. So I think if that's the case, what they can do with a television event, let's hope, and I'm hopeful, that something's going to take place at the ballot box come March 4th.
All right, Oka, is there a difference between what the middle class are looking for in a leader and what the low-income earners are looking for? What is it, the same thing? Are they different things they're looking for as they go to the election?
Sophia, the key issue with the middle class is that they hold a certain amount of hatred, quote unquote, for the leaders who are already sitting there, the incumbents. They always believe they're the ones who should be there. And so a lot of times they don't participate because they're thinking they need these guys to galvanize the lower class, the lower income earners, in their favor when it's their turn. So it's like they're practicing leadership in absentia. And most of the times when they watch these fellows, they're thinking, I could be there, because these are their age mates, probably guys who just made it a bit earlier in life. And they're thinking, something went wrong, that's why I'm still here. So the middle class is usually very, detached, so to speak. They'll go out and take their votes just for the sake of taking it, and then they don't use it. Yeah, and the other thing with them is that in spectating, they have a lot of commentary, and they have a lot of ideas to float around, and then they don't actualize those ideas. And that's where the failure comes in. The middle class ends up being, again, the sedentary armchair guy who never does anything.
All right. Kaigo, final question to you. For those seeking elective positions and for the electorate, what do they need to look out for in terms of social media engagement? Should those seeking political office engage them more? Is there a huge electorate there? And those on social media, how do they engage with the leaders on social media?
Right. I'll just very quickly just issue a response to that, because I think that criticism in some respects is deserved, but I still think, like I said, because we haven't had a precedent, the one thing that I can say towards that is that with this upcoming election and the state of devolved government and the constitution we have, we're certainly going to see some measure, a greater measure of middle class involvement than we've seen before. Even though it might not measure expectations, it's certainly going to exceed what was there previously, in my opinion. Now, regarding the electorate, I think I've said this a number of times. I don't believe that politicians fully have committed to the idea of social media, and certainly the ideals of participation and inclusion that
should they commit to social media?
Now, I believe they should, because I think it'll have an impact on them as individuals and the way that they lead and characterize them. But we've seen a number of them definitely pay lip service and stay as involved as they can, but not transformative.
All right, we have to wind up, but quickly, Ouko, what does that person seeking presidential office, gubernatorial, senatorial, what do they need to look out for? How do they engage the middle class and the lower income earners, the two groups?
Actually, our leaders at whatever level, they have to find a way of activating the middle class. And one of the things they have avoided doing is to engage these guys directly. Most of the times they are happier at the rally where they have the lower income group, cheering them on, like somebody once called it the cheering crowd, which the middle class doesn't do. So they need to find and invent other ways of engaging these people, making sure they run with them. And in any case, they're the ones who probably, carry the larger influence, leave alone the voting pattern. But in terms of influence and in terms of giving in to ideas, they carry the bigger chunk.
All right.
Yeah.
One word answer. Will the middle class turn up in large numbers to vote in the coming election?
I think this time, yes, they will.
They will?
Yeah.
I'm glad he agrees. I believe they will.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate your time for talking to us about this issue. Indeed, we are coming to you live from